Welcome to the Sub 1000 Recruitment Podcast. With so much of the recruitment industry conversation aimed at big enterprise talent acquisition teams, we decided recruiters at smaller everyday organizations need to be heard. In 2023, we launched our free-to-join Sub 1000 online community. We have thousands of in-house recruiters and HR professionals from everyday organizations who recruit less than 1,000 staff a year, in some cases less than 100. And if you are listening to this, you've probably guessed the next bit. We've also launched a podcast to hear direct from those recruiters. Their stories, insights and experiences about how they get the job done on a limited budget with limited support in either a small team or perhaps completely on their own. Tune in every fortnight to hear from your direct peers. And if you want to get involved, join our free online community at sub1000.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to another Sub 1000 podcast episode. Today we're joined by Graham Jameson. So Graham's had over a decade of in-house recruitment experience. So we're really lucky to have him today. So to start things off, Graham, and just to introduce yourself, can you tell us about how you first got into recruitment and tell us about some of your recent experience to date?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Ben, great to be here. As you said, over a decade now in the in-house recruitment space. Funny enough, I started my recruitment journey at Hireful, working for a couple of years on their client delivery side, and actually, I think picked up some really useful hints and tips there that I still use today. When it comes to things like advert copy, writing adverts. If you get the basics right, they stay with you right through kind of your career. But I've also worked for some larger businesses, some household names, the likes of Argos, the Travis Perkins Group, and Avon. And I'm currently at the One-to-One Diet by Cambridge Weight Plan, leading all talent acquisition activity within the business, and helping to firstly set up and then shape our in-house recruitment function.
Okay, so really thanks for the intro and the background, Graham. So in the current recruitment landscape, obviously it can be quite challenging at the moment. One of the things you've talked about on your profile was around candidate engagement. So can you just take us through kind of why you feel candidate engagement is so important in the current landscape?
Yeah, sure. Candidate engagement is critical. I mean, we hear terms within the industry constantly around employer brand, employer value proposition, and no matter who you work for, whatever type of role you're recruiting for, each employer has a brand, whether they like it or not. I see it as very similar to a consumer or a commercial brand. People need to trust in that brand before they're going to make a purchase, and that's exactly the same when it comes to recruitment. Nobody will look at you as an employer if they don't trust you as a brand. So we need to create that trust with our audiences. And that can be an overarching kind of, employer brand across, this is what it means as a whole business, but then you can split that into subcategories if you're recruiting for tech candidates, for example, they're probably going to have different wants and needs to maybe a sales force or an operational or kind of manufacturing based workforce. So it's about tapping into the wants and needs of those candidates and what that looks like within your business, so you can help engage with them and attract them. And certainly, as we've seen over the last couple of years, 3, potentially kind of 4 years, there's been a steady kind of behavioural change within that kind of candidate mindset, brought about by the pandemic. We've now got newer generations coming into the workforce. I think I saw some research not so long ago that said, I think by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be kind of millennials. And then next coming year on that, it's going to be Gen Z are going to make up the majority of the workforce. And there's a whole host of research out there that suggests what they are looking for from employment and from employers is starkly different to other generations that have been in the workforce a lot longer. So candidate engagement plays a key part, because we need to be making sure that we know how to interact with these audiences. We know what they want from an employer, so we can attract them into our businesses, and kind of make sure we're, as a business, staying ahead of competition, we're not falling behind, and we continue to be productive and proactive as a business. We've probably all heard the kind of terms war, the war for talent as well. We've seen vacancies across the last couple of years. Vacancy levels have spiked astronomically, and vacancies have outstripped the talent. There are certain skill shortages within certain industries and kind of sectors as well. So, like I said, if we're not engaging with that audience in the right way, we're not able to attract the talent to bring them into the business, and somebody else is going to snap them up before we can get kind of in front of them.
So we understand that candidate engagement is really critical to any talent acquisition function performing effectively. So how would you, Graham, tailor that candidate engagement or candidate communication depending on the type of profile you're trying to attract?
I think it's exactly that. It's personalizing to that type of audience, and I don't think you don't have to get really kind of in depth with this. I mean, you can look at a good example would be potentially working with your marketing team. Marketing and sales teams, generally, if you are marketing or selling a product or a service, they would create what's called a persona of their typical audience that they are trying to engage with. And we can do that from a candidate perspective, in terms of creating candidate personas. We can do that by understanding our current workforce within those areas. So, if we take within our business, we have a proportion of frontline operational workers that are working within our food production environment. So, we can understand from who we've got already. You could just create some basic focus groups, or you could, even send around some kind of easy surveys, just asking, why do they do what they do? What gets them out of bed in the morning? Why do they come to work? What do they enjoy what they're doing? What don't they enjoy about their role? And if they could change anything, what would it be? You then start to build up a picture of what's important to them. So when you start to kind of understand that, you can pull that into your attraction, kind of activity, whatever it is, you do, the language that you use, it might seem like a basic thing, but, getting your job adverts worded correctly and actually highlighting the things that candidates want to hear about. You could talk to your blue in the face about what the job is, but there are some jobs where people see the job title and they think, well, I know what that generally involves. But an advert is there to sell. It's there to get somebody to click apply, and then you can, take it from there. So if you can get the wording right with how you're trying to attract somebody and what you're trying to attract them to, that's going to give you, a much better level of engagement than putting out, a kind of a copy and paste from a job description that just talks about a job. But that process has to follow through. So when you're engaging with candidates, so if you're having, it could be a telephone interview, even a first stage interview, a video interview, for example, is using the same type of language, making sure that whether it's your employer value proposition or your employer brand, there's consistency going throughout what you're talking about, how you're talking about it, and ensuring that your hiring teams are aligned to that as well, so that your hiring managers are also giving off the same experience. So you've got that consistent approach and that personalized kind of message flowing throughout that. And that's the same, it could be from your assessment processes as well. If you're looking for high demand talents, do you really want to be putting them through 3, 4, even 5 assessment processes it could be right from a long application form through to technical assessments. It's, if you can understand what makes these people tick, let's just get it through and work with them, have a real clear understanding of what you're trying to assess before you're doing it, so you can keep it quick and efficient for them, and in line with their expectations. I think I saw some research only the other week that suggested once a candidate applies, I think they expect to have had an interview within 6 days of applying, if they're going to be successful. So candidates want things quick and efficient, and we need to make sure that we're giving them an experience that is relevant to them and is in line with their own expectations.
So we understand that candidate experience and candidate engagement is important in tailoring those approaches. But how do you measure your actual success on delivering a great candidate experience? How do you know ultimately that what you're doing is working and candidates are responsive to it?
I don't think there's any rocket science behind this. It could be as simple as a feedback survey from candidates. So it's something we do here. As soon as a candidate has been interviewed with us, we will send them a very short survey, anonymous, just to say, how did we do? Getting them to, kind of tell us about their recruitment experience so far, and how they found it, in terms of that interview process and anything kind of leading up to that. You can go a step further. You could do it just for new starters, for example, or you could do it for everybody that has applied to a job. We don't typically have high volume recruitment, so I didn't see the need necessarily to do it for everybody that has applied, but we do it for everybody that has been interviewed, because by that point they should be more engaged with you as an employer, or as a potential employer, and that they're more invested in the recruitment process. We do it before we have given them a decision. So literally as soon as they've been interviewed, we'll send that survey out to them to give us that feedback, so they are still unknown as to the outcome of that decision, to hopefully not sway any bias so much within that. But you can do other things as well, where we hold check-ins with all of our new starters. So we'll have our company induction to kind of help introduce them to the business, but also after they've been with us for 8-12 weeks, we'll get together with each new starter just to understand how they're finding things in the business, if there's anything we could have done differently, all of those different kind of bits and pieces, just to help understand what they like, what they don't like, and helping to drive any kind of improvements. Like I said, nothing kind of rocket science. It's just about asking the questions, and doing it at various different stages throughout the process, and then you can use that to build up a bit of a data set to help drive improvements, and to help also influence the wider business on what improvements might need to be made, because hiring is it's a process for the entire business. It's not just for your recruitment team or your HR team. The whole business needs to be involved in this, and has a part to play. So using that data can be really valuable in helping to influence decisions where you're trying to make improvements across the wider hiring journey, and also the induction and onboarding journey, which is critical for any new starter. Any feedback from within that you can use to help, help influence your hiring managers on the impact that they have on that journey as well.
So we know that attracting talent is super important. We also understand that the candidate experience is super important. So what do you think the role technology plays in that candidate engagement strategy? And are there any particular tools or systems or platforms that you can recommend?
It's an interesting one with technology. As yes, I'm an advocate for technology. I think if you get the right kind of technology in place, it will help you leaps and bounds. I've worked in recruitment roles without any technology. I've also worked implementing technology, and typically I would say the key piece of technology for me would be an applicant tracking system and a career site, whether they are integrated on the same platform or whether they are separate, separate kind of pieces of technology that are linked together. I think both of those are critical, because the career site is your shop window as a business in terms of what candidates can find out about you, and ultimately it gives you that process of enabling a candidate to just submit their details in whatever form that is, whether that's applying for a job or whether they're saying, hey, I'm interested in you as an employer. I can give you my details and you can reach out to me if you think they've got relevant jobs for me. It gives you that opportunity. And then the applicant tracking system in the back end is a way for you to do just that, track applications, but also to manage talent pools. And I think one of the key benefits for me is to automate and to schedule personalized communication, because when I've worked in roles where we don't have an ATS in place, the time and admin burden that you have on communicating to all of your candidates, whether they've been successful, whether they've not been successful, whether it's just a bit of an update for them, it can be so time consuming to do that. So if you've got an ATS in place, that's going to enable you to more efficiently communicate with your candidates, and doing it at a larger scale and larger volume, means that you're improving your candidate engagement, and you're also giving enabling efficiencies within your own role and your own activity to help you focus on some of the more value add pieces within the talent acquisition space, which is going to be really important, showing value back to your business as well.
So, having recently implemented an ATS in your current role, Graham, what's the difference between working in your current role with an ATS and without an ATS? What benefits have you seen, and has he been allowed to have any different engagement with hiring managers?
Key differences for me, I'll probably say the top two are: one, candidate engagement. So being able to more quickly and efficiently speak to, contact candidates, give them the right information at the right time. You can. There's been a lot of talk on LinkedIn recently, with people's journeys in the recruitment process, and there still seems to be a large portion of businesses out there that don't contact candidates if they've been unsuccessful. Or we see it in certain job adverts where it will say, due to the large volume, if you haven't heard with us within X amount of time, please assume that you've been unsuccessful. Candidates are saying that they think that isn't the right approach, and they don't think it's very engaging for an employer to do that. So an ATS is going to enable you to, even if they've been unsuccessful, just update the candidate, let them know that they haven't been unsuccessful. And you can do that in a more engaging way to say, you've not been successful this time, but go and register for our job alerts with us, to find out more relevant jobs that come through. Go and, just go and register your profile with us. So if something does come up, we can search for your profile. Obviously, all being GDPR compliant, but it gives them more of an approach to say it's almost, yes, it's a no thank you at this time, but it's almost say, but the door isn't closed. There could be something for you in the future, and so it's just more of a soft approach. And I guess the other aspects would be around the efficiencies created within the the role that we perform as recruitment professionals ourselves. It's about having more efficiency, less admin, so we can go away and perform more of the value add pieces. So whether it be our direct sourcing, reaching out to the kind of passive talent out there, doing that in the role, because that's an art form in itself in terms of your candidate outreach, is how you go about doing that. And that can be time consuming, but also how you're engaging with the business. Within my role, I perform a lot of benchmarking, industry insights, and working as part of a wider HR function. I get involved in other HR projects. Induction and onboarding has been a big piece for us over the last kind of 6 to 12 months. So I've been doing a lot of work on that, and how we can drive improvements within that space. So having the right technology in place, such as our ATS, I get the efficiencies created from that. There's not as much of a recruitment admin burden and time restraints on the actual recruitment delivery side of things. So I can go away and I can also focus my time and energy on more value add pieces. So it gives more back to the business to ultimately help make better informed decisions.
So, in terms of candidate engagement, candidate attraction, it seems to be there's almost a multi-channel approach you can take in terms of how you engage with candidates, and ultimately how they can engage with yourself as an organisation. Where do you stand on a career site? Do you see that as being a really important channel in terms of a candidate engagement, candidate attraction?
Definitely. Like it is your shop window into your business. Now, I don't think it's the be all and end all of everything. Um, as you mentioned there, it's a multi-channel approach, and this is where I think recruitment marketing and marketing, as you would see, within your business, within your marketing department, they are so well aligned in terms of the activity that we're performing is very, very similar, and we're seeing businesses take a much stronger approach to their recruitment marketing, and actually that's probably where a lot of the investment where businesses are seeking within their recruitment kind of teams is within that recruitment marketing space, because without, you can have the best content in the world, but without being able to put it in front of the right audience through the right channel, nobody's going to see it, and it's not going to have the impact you need. So career site really important, because that ultimately acts as your landing page. That's where you're driving all of your audience back to. And ultimately, I see it very much as it's a transactional website. The key aim of a career site, I believe, should be to complete an application. The rest of it, i.e., being able to inform people about your business, why people should work there, your employer brand, what your EVP is, that's all really important kind of content, but I believe it's secondary. What your career site should be there to do is to convert a job seeker into an applicant. We want them to click apply and apply to us, and then we can kind of process that application kind of further and hopefully get the right talent into the business. That's its number one aim for me. And there are career sites out there that will do a fantastic job of that. I've seen certain kind of technology in place where even the job search on career sites it's like searching in Google now, where as soon as you start typing, it will give you relevant jobs that are within that business already, and you can just type by location or whatever. Really kind of powerful stuff, serving you up relevant suggestions, based on your search activity, etc. So career site kind of really important, but it doesn't diminish the fact that you still need to go out. It's not going to be a one-stop shop. You still need to utilize other channels out there to get you in front of the audience. Job boards, I still believe play a massive kind of part to play in that kind of talent attraction space. For me, Indeed probably comes out on top from a generalist perspective, in terms of the level of candidates that will pull through, but also the audience it will get you in front of. All you have to do is conduct any basic job search on Google, and aside from Google for jobs, the top results generally are always going to be Indeed, and that's where kind of candidates are probably going to click onto. But there are obviously other job boards out there. We utilize ourselves that still play a massive part, and the likes of LinkedIn, probably the most expensive channel out there. But I've just done some. We've recently renewed our contracts. For us, it's our most expensive channel, but actually, from looking at the past kind of 12 months, the return on investment we've got from it has been fantastic compared to volume. And like I said, we're not recruiting on a volume scale. So each role we recruit for is specialist, and it's its own role. There isn't a team of people kind of doing these roles. So being able to find the right talent is going to be critical, and in being able to kind of engage with them. So having the right channels in place is key to that success.
So somebody who's led numerous candidate engagement initiatives during their career, does one project or one engagement initiative really stand out above the rest for yourself, Graham?
Yeah, I think one recently for us is as I kind of joined into this business, my role was created brand new. As part of a new kind of expansion strategy we were kind of going through at the time, and as part of that, all of our head of department recruitment previously had been done via recruitment agencies, and our heads of department in our business, they are one level below our board of directors. In other businesses, they might be seen as functional or kind of operational directors. We call them heads of departments, and so all of that had been done via agency, coming at quite a significant cost. And there had been times where I think we'd seen a little bit of churn in terms of actually that role, that person coming in, whether they come through an agency, whether they in long term were they the right person for the role, or did we get the brief right? So recently, I've run a campaign where we did it all in house. So working with the directors very closely in terms of, okay, what is it you're looking for, and not just that, but also I guess challenging the status quo of, okay, this is what you've potentially looked for previously. Is it still relevant now? Is it right? Is it going to get you what you need versus what you want? And so going through that, and then I conducted a kind of personalized outreach campaign on LinkedIn, effectively providing an exec search type service to candidates, going from that initial outreach right through to onboarding, and that's meant we've been able to successfully hire a new head of department into the business, completely internally. We didn't have any agency support on it, and to the point where I think it's the one piece of recruitment at this level I've heard of in this business where all of our senior leaders have said, this person is exactly the right fit for this business, and we've nailed it. So not a high volume kind of impact that you would see in other recruitment campaigns, more of a niche one. But again, from a smaller business, I think this is where you can start to see real direct impact. It doesn't have to be this big, fancy, flashy campaign where you're going out to various different channels, you're using loads of, funky technology. If you can communicate with people in the right way, tell the right story, then, you have a really kind of engaged audience, and you're setting yourself up as an employer of choice. People want to come and work for them. They understand whether it's right for them. But as like I said, following that right through to, from that initial outreach through to onboarding, being there as an advisor for them, as a partner for them, taking them through that journey, and should see successful results from that.
So consistency and continuity is the backbone of any process or any effective process. So when we think about talent acquisition and candidate engagement, candidate experience, then it should really be driven by a business rather than just one individual person within an organisation. So taking that on board, if you agree, how do you communicate the importance of the candidate experience to be owned by the business, and how do you get that buy-in?
There's probably a few key kind of elements to this, certainly from my own experience. First one is going to be data. Know your data, know your numbers, your figures, and that's again, that could be your, what your conversion rates are from application to interview, from interview to hire, etc., through to this is your time to offer, this is your cost per hire. Not just knowing them, but knowing the story to tell with the data as well. If you've got a backlog or a bottleneck within your hiring journey, you need to be able to pinpoint that, and whether that's with hiring managers that are taking too long to respond to you on candidates, or provide feedback, etc. It's about being able to highlight that. And sometimes the business has to experience a bit of pain for them to really kind of take the learnings from what you're trying to tell them, and also to grow from that. We've experienced that here. The candidate market has, is kind of unprecedented, or has been over the last couple of years, where candidates have got the choice of the jobs that they can apply to and opportunities they can kind of go for, which means if you hang around, if you take too long, you're going to lose that talent. And we've seen a lot of that. And I don't think we're alone in this. I've spoken to a number of other people in my network that have kind of had similar experiences. The talent isn't waiting for you. Even if you're their preferred option, they're going to go with who can move quickly and efficiently through that process, give them a great experience. If you take too long, so there's an element of you have to learn through experience within that, but also showing them, utilizing whether it's kind of weekly, monthly reporting, telling stories from that, and then being able to track any trends that you see from that kind of week on week, month on month, is key. And then being able to get that in front of the right people, whether you've got management reports, exec reports, whatever it might be, trying to segue it, it's into that to show the performance, to show the relevance of it. But I also say is working with your stakeholders, partnering with them, because they might look at some of the data and the stories and think, what, it doesn't really mean anything to me. But if you can partner with them, understand their needs, and then translate that into what the external talent landscape looks like, it starts to hit home with them. It could be as simple as a hiring manager's saying, I need to recruit for a particular vacancy. I always make a point of, I would go into any kind of briefing session or intake meeting with the hiring managers. Okay, let me just have a look at the channels that I've got available to me, whether that's Indeed, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's other job boards out there. What kind of insight can I provide on what that talent looks like within that kind of particular industry or role type, so that I can go to that meeting and start to set expectations. So if I'm saying that, okay, it looks like we're in an area where there's lots of talent available, it means that we can, be probably really selective in terms of what we're, who we want and what we're kind of looking for, because there's a lot of talent available, so we should be able to find it. However, if I go and say, well, I've taken a look and, there's very, very limited talent within the right area with potentially the right skill sets, it means that we're probably going to have to compromise on either the time we take to look for somebody, the skill level that we're looking for, or even the salary level that we're kind of pitching it at, and may have had kind of signed off. So you can use that insight, just to start setting expectations, with the business. And I think as you go through process, as you partner more with your stakeholders in the business, it's keeping that consistency of, if we deliver a great experience, is going to create a more engaged workforce. And we've seen examples of that within this business for, just little things that we might do within some of our meeting rooms. We've got kind of like digital signage, just kind of like screens on the walls and we can put whatever piece of content we want on there. So whenever we have interviews within those rooms, I get our internal comms team to put a nice little welcome message with the candidate's name on there. So when they come into the meeting room and say, I've seen, that looks nice. So we're creating what, it might only seem little things, but we're creating these lasting impressions with people. So then they feel welcomed by our, the business. They feel like they're having a great experience, and that's rubbing off on our hiring managers, because they're coming back to me saying, Graham, can we get that? Candidates love this. Can we get this up on the board? Or, Graham, can we do this? Because, the candidates really enjoyed how we ran this process. So, it's gentle kind of consistency and drip feeding to your hiring team around, best practice, what good looks like, and eventually, there will be hiring managers it takes a longer time to rub off on. You're working with different hiring managers, different industries and sectors, but I think the more you kind of show that consistency, the more it kind of feeds into them, and when they see the reaction from their candidates and possible new starters, then it hits home with them to think, actually, this is what we should be doing.
Within in-house recruitment teams and talent acquisition teams, we often hear the phrase business partnering. So could you share an example, Graham, where perhaps you've had to business partner with perhaps someone in a senior leadership team, or maybe almost kind of like manage upwards, and maybe share some tips on how you approach that to get the best results?
Yeah, sure. I would say that there's a recent example that we've had in this business where we've been recruiting for a senior leader within the business, and the our senior leaders decided that they want to manage this process themselves as a group rather than going through our usual kind of recruitment process. So it's not something that I was tasked with delivering on. Which is absolutely fine. But what I was then, I was working with our HR director on a few bits and pieces, and through some of the experiences that we've seen in the past, such as the candidate engagement examples, the welcome we give to candidates when they come in for interview, how we describe things to candidates, even whether it's certain kind of packs that we send out to candidates ahead of interview. Being able to introduce all of these little things has had a profound effect. So I've been working with our HR director on a senior role that he's been leading, and and he's then saying, "Oh, Graham, I'm interested in doing this. How can we do that? Or what's the best way to do that?" So even though it's not a role that I've been responsible for kind of working on and helping to deliver, I've then been able, I've then been partnering with our leaders to kind of say, okay, if you're looking at doing this from an assessment perspective, this is the best way we can communicate it. Even from, arranging for candidates to complete a presentation task for us. I've got a nice little kind of pack that I use for any kind of presentation tasks or anything like that. So rather than just sending out kind of in a few lines on an email, it's kind of, they've got a nice slide deck that they can kind of go through, adds context, gives them all the information they need. So pulling that together, through to how we communicate with candidates, the language that we kind of use, how we engage with them. So that's something that even without working on that vacancy, I've still been working with the board, and they've been asking for advice and best practice on, okay, how can we do this? What, we're looking at doing this. Do you think that's right, or could we do something differently? So it's been a good kind of process in the fact that whilst I've it's not a role that I've been working on, I'm still having to partner with our senior leaders to achieve the best outcome, making sure that we're engaging candidates in the right way, and giving the best possible experiences to them, which again has resulted in success. And we've had some really positive feedback from very senior level candidates of how we've done things and the approach that we've taken.
Well, that's the end of our conversation today, Graham. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing those insights, and I'm sure there's some great tips that our sub 1,000 listeners will be able to take away and implement themselves. If anybody is interested, Graham, would you be happy for people to reach out to you directly and ask you any further questions?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Just hit me up on LinkedIn or through the guys at Hireful. I'll be more than happy to kind of share any thoughts and best practice.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much, Graham.